5:36. The head of an NHS trust at the centre of scores of allegations of poor maternity care has insisted that he won't be resigning. Simon Wright, the chief executive of Shrewsbury and Telford Trust, says he has a difficult job to do and he's apologised to any families who've been failed over the past 2 decades. His comments come as one of the country's leading experts on patient safety has told the BBC that the problems in Shrewsbury have the hallmarks of previous NHS scandals. Michael Buchanan, the BBC Social Affairs correspondent, is here. And how many families claim to have been affected by mistakes at this trust, Michael?
Well, Colin, more than 100 families have come forward so far to allege that they suffered harm as a result of maternity errors at Shrewsbury and Telford Trust. Their babies died or suffered significant injuries, or, in some cases, the mothers themselves were harmed. That's certainly the case with Andrea Bates. She has a happy and healthy daughter, Eva, who was born at the Prince's Royal Hospital in Telford in 2015. But the birth, in Andrea's words, was brutal. A forceps delivery at the second attempt. She was left with an open wound for 9 months. She still has nerve damage in her leg, has incontinence issues, has had 2 operations, she may need more, and has suffered from depression as a result of what happened and her inability to return to work.
It's just totally changed our life as a family. You know, my daughter's okay and I'm grateful for that. But, you know, we haven't had any more children because of this, because you know, I'm scared, and I've had 2 operations, and I want things to change. I'm angry. I suppose I'm bitter at times, because I think if they listened to us, things would be different.
One of the things that you hear from Andrea is that she felt a sense of isolation. She thought she was the only one going through the problems that she has. But she wasn't, though. We've spoken to another woman, Julie Hughes, who was left with major physical problems after a brutal forceps delivery in 2002, again at the same trust.
And these allegations are spanning 2 decades. Has there been any changes to the way that things are run at the trust?
Well, the allegation is that there have not been the changes. Certainly that's what we've been told by a former nurse at the trust, who says there wasn't a culture of learning there. She wishes to remain anonymous. She spent more than a decade in the maternity unit at the Royal Shrewsbury Hospital and has told us that mistakes were rarely investigated properly.
There are heads being buried in sand. People do say, oh, it was a dreadful mishap, this, that and the other, and we'll learn from it. But when I was there, I don't think they learnt from it. I think it was a case of we'll dot the I's, cross the T's, say all the right things to the right people, and we move on. That
failure to improve practice has come up in other circumstances. We know, for instance, that between 2014 and 2016, 5 babies died at the trust because they'd failed to properly monitor their heart rates and didn't spot the children were in distress. Dr Bill Kirkup, who has investigated several NHS failures and chaired the review of maternity care at Morecambe Bay, where poor care led to the avoidable deaths of 11 babies and 1 mother, says the stories coming out of the Shrewsbury and Telford Trust have echoes of Morecambe Bay and need to be properly investigated by the NHS.
And what about management of the trust? What have they been saying?
Well, the pressure has been mounting on the Trust Chief Executive, Simon Wright, in recent weeks, as you would expect, not just because of the problems in his maternity unit, but also because of opposition to his plans to close overnight the A&E unit in Telford. But when we caught up with him earlier this week, he was adamant he was going nowhere.
Are you out of your depth, Mr Wright?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've got a difficult job to do and I intend to see that job through. But I want to take the opportunity once again to say that for any parent, any mother who's had any issues to do with their mums, please come and talk to the organisation. We want to be able to make sure that we're taking that learning on board, and we're deeply sorry for any harm that has occurred to any baby in our organisation over the last 20 years.
Now, NHS inspectors have raised urgent concerns about current maternity services, the full details of which will become known later this month. But it's important to say that the Trust insist their maternity services are safe.
Michael Buchanan, thank you.